We speak to the gun goddess, Tracey Wilson. She's actually the chair of the board of directors for the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights. And she joins us right now. Good morning.
Good morning, Tommy. Thanks a lot for having me on the show today.
Okay, Tracey, what is the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights all about?
Okay, well, what we are is we are a volunteer-based organization. We have no paid staff. We don't have a brick-and-mortar office. We operate, like a satellite office. And what we're looking for is just some honest, effective gun laws. We're not looking to, have no gun laws. We're not that kind of organization. We are a law and order group. However, we'd like to find some common ground where we can actually affect some positive change for public safety while not burdening law-abiding gun owners.
What are some misconceptions that people have about gun laws, Tracey?
Well, I think, you really can't blame the public for their perception, because the way it's presented is, getting guns off the street, or, we have too many guns in the street. Well, first of all, law-abiding gun owners don't have their guns out in the street. We have them safely secured, storage in our homes. We're going out to the range. We're going to the hunt camp. We're bringing our families out. You sort of get this dark image by the way it's portrayed. And the thing is that the gun laws are targeted at those people rather than at the people who are the ones out, committing crimes. Vancouver Police just recently released a report that 94% of the guns that have been seized that were used during a crime were not legally obtained. So who are we really protecting here?
Is it a matter of wishful thinking? We're saying if we have laws against guns that criminals won't have them?
Well, that's like saying we should have a law against heroin.
Right. Then it won't exist, right?
Right. It's the same kind of thing, right? I mean, a law is only upheld by people who are law-abiding. So, we want some tough laws that'll, when you get a criminal who's using a firearm, charge him with it, keep him, lock him up, make some effective change that way. But you can, put all kinds of legislation on us all you want. It really doesn't do any, it doesn't enhance public safety in any way.
How would you describe the state of gun control in Canada right now?
Well, I mean, it's taken some funky turns, and I think there's a little bit of confusion going on lately with some interpretations by the RCMP. Law enforcement is there for exactly that, enforcing laws, not writing them. They should be written by the lawmakers. So I think there's a little bit of confusion going on lately, and I think the problem is essentially the people who are sitting down and discussing these matters may not be the best candidates for that job. We want value-added gun laws. We want to sit down with the lawmakers and the stakeholders and go down through the list and ask, what is the point of this, and how does this contribute to public safety? And if it doesn't, then let's just get rid of it and bring in something that does. It's tough to fight crime, but that's ultimately where you've got to go with this. Otherwise, you're just sort of painting a fluffy picture that you're doing something when you're really not. We're not any safer by the laws in place, and we still haven't seen any tough action on crime.
I want to talk about painting that fluffy picture. Quebec hopes to have its own gun registry. How effective or ineffective is a gun registry?
Well, it's completely ineffective. They spent, $8 billion on the federal registry, and there hasn't been any valid proof that one crime was either solved or prevented by the registry. So what is the purpose? You're creating a pile of admin work, a pile of red tape and really expensive work to be done. But meanwhile, we've still got the gangbangers and the bad guys essentially out there running the streets, doing whatever they want. So, I think the idea that the way they present it to the public, now we'll know where the guns are and it'll get them off the streets and we know where they are. Well, it's not our guns you need to worry about. There's over 2 million of us. If we were a problem, you'd know it.
Now, obviously, it's easier to harass law-abiding gun owners than it is to get those gangs off the streets. But there's a lot of reticence to loosen up the laws, gun laws in this country at all. Like we just received a text. Somebody wants to know if you were born in the U.S. They think
No, absolutely not.
They think it's very un-Canadian for you to be pro-gun. What do you say to that?
Well, I think there's not much more Canadian than firearms, hockey, Tim Hortons, the Tragically Hip. These are all super Canadian things. I'm a proud Canadian mom and grandma. My kids shoot. We love it. We have a great time. We hunt. We sport shoot. I'm a single mom. I live alone with a teenage daughter. My other one's grown and gone. And, we've got to just change the way we're looking at this. It's just silly. There's nothing more Canadian than firearms.
This texter says, if you moved and forgot to change your address with the cops, do you get a fine?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to report a change of address to the CFO of your province and let them know. There's a lot of red tape about that. But, yeah, you've got to keep everything up to date. It's a lot of work being a firearms owner, and ultimately, personally, I don't mind it so much. But let's find some way that we can enhance public safety. We're skirting around the issue. We're not fixing anything wrong with the bad guys, with the criminals, with the gangbangers. Nothing's happening there. So that's what I'd like to work on.
This text is saying we are discriminated against. I've got a nephew who's not allowed at my house because I own rifles, despite the fact they're stored in a gun safe with a trigger lock, the ammunition stored separately. My neighbors always give me dirty looks every time I take a rifle to the range, just moving it in a locked case from my door to my car. What do you say to that?
Well, I get that problem totally. I've got two daughters. They're both past the birthday party age now, but there was many times that we would be planning a birthday party at the house, and, we'd want all the kids over. Well, the parents who knew that I was a firearms owner, they wouldn't want their children in my house. And I thought, well, if your 6-year-old can, manage to open my gun safe, find my keys, first of all, open my gun safe, take out a rifle, load a magazine, put it in the gun, chamber around, and shoot us, then we might have a problem. Other than that, how does this affect anything, It's an irrational fear of a piece of steel or polymer. That's all it is. It's just irrational.
There's a listener who wants to speak to our guest, Tracey Wilson. Tracey Wilson is the chair of the board of directors for the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. This listener wants to know, why do you need a gun? We'll get the answer to that question in our conversation with Tracey Wilson, chairman of the board of directors for the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Lots of interesting questions for you. One listener wants to know why you need a gun, and Mila says, why does anyone outside the police and military need a gun? Outlaw them all, period. Hunting, get your food from a store. That's what Mila says. What would you say to these two?
Well, I appreciate the question, and actually we do get it a lot, so I'd love to take a kick at that, Ken. First of all, we don't live in a society of need. We don't live in a need-based environment. Who needs a fancy, high-performance car? Who needs a 6-figure salary or beauty products or speedboats? Banning something because it isn't a necessity is not the society we live in. Otherwise, we'd all be wearing burlap and walking to work. As far as, getting my food from the grocery store, you do realize somebody did have to kill that animal at some point. So I know where my food comes from. I know how it was obtained. It's obtained in the most humane manner possible. And, you get an appreciation for nature, for everything else when you're hunting. Hunting is kind of its own, that's its own can of worms right there. But, we've been hunting for thousands of years. We're all descendants of successful hunters. So defending that, what's more Canadian than that?
This TC sent us a text, says, thank God for our gun laws. They're the reason my abusive ex was finally put away. What would you say to that?
Well, Steph Can did a report on family violence. You can look it up and read it yourself, all your listeners. The last one, 2010, 18 women were killed by firearms in domestic violence. That's now how many of those were legally obtained firearms? I'm not trying to minimize the problem. It's a valid argument, but here's the thing. If you've got an abusive ex who wants to do you harm, who wants to kill you, far more women are stabbed, far more women are choked, beaten, thrown off balconies. If somebody wants to kill you, there's a million other ways they can do it. and far more popular ways. Firearms is not a problem. People die every day. About 350,000 in Canada die every year. 50,000 from heart disease. Through 24,000 from medical mistakes. We have approximately 150 firearm-related homicides in Canada each year. It's really not a problem. It's the media that feeds that to them.
This listener says, to respond to those who believe only the police and military should have guns, a small reminder is required. When you outlaw guns, only outlaws have them, right? I mean, if you outlawed them completely, criminals would still keep them because they don't abide by the law.
Well, that's right. So, it's that kind of backwards thinking that you can attach a law to something. It doesn't make it so. Otherwise, we could, make heroin or child abuse illegal, and it would never happen again, right? We've got to be sensible and mature about the discussion.
This listener is upset at what you're saying. You said that you believed we're afraid of the steal. We're afraid of the person who might become hostile, who knows where you keep your keys and where you keep your ammunition. What would you say to that listener?
Well, this is the thing. As a holder of a restricted firearms license, my name is run through an RCMP database every single day to ensure that I'm upholding the laws of this country. And this in itself makes me among the most law-abiding people there are in Canada. I know every single day, well, the RCMP knows every single day that I haven't done one thing wrong. I haven't broken a law. I'm not a threat. I'm checked out every single day. It's continuous eligibility screening. Every single day we have that. Do you? We know I'm safe. Do we know that these other people are safe?
I've been a hunter since I was 12 years old. I'm now 57. I enjoy it very much. I've taken all the safety courses. I have all the appropriate licenses and permits. I follow all the rules and regulations. Why should I be penalized for what someone else is doing wrong?
Bingo. That's exactly right. We don't attach the same stigma to anything else that we do to firearms. I really don't understand the logic behind that. People commit all kinds of heinous things all the time, driving their truck into a crowd of people and killing 82 people, but we don't look at it the same way. Why are guns sensationalized?
And this texter is saying that, basically. This listener is saying, how many people are killed by drunk drivers? We don't ban all cars or stop people from driving. By the way, I'm not a gun owner and never have been. Tell me about your take on gun laws in the United States.
Well, the United States is a completely different animal in its own. I'm not really an expert on American gun laws because I live here in Canada, and these are the laws I have to abide by. They've got a couple different things going on down there. First of all, they've got a massive gang problem. They've got 1.4 million gang members running rampant. These are known, affiliated gang members. If they organize themselves, they could take over the country. So that in itself is an issue. And then they've got a born right, a Second Amendment right to firearms. So it's looked at completely different. You can't take their guns. That's it. So that's it's a different monster in itself. And they've also got way more people than us. So yeah, do they have more firearm related homicides than us? That's right, they do. But they also have a lot more people. So I think if you took a rational, mature look at the numbers, it is a different situation going on down there, but it really doesn't relate to Canada.
How do you
completely different?
What's the reaction? How do gun control groups react to your organization, the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights?
Well, in the article that appeared in the Ottawa Sun and the Citizen, and in newspapers all across the country, we had a quote from Wendy Cook here saying, having me in the gun lobby is sort of like putting lipstick on a pig. And we've heard the same old argument from the gun control side, with personal attacks and name calling. And if we're going to call each other names and throw insults around, the conversation will never change or evolve. The CCFR is dedicated to having honest, mature, data-driven discussion, and we just don't take part in that kind of behavior.
Well, it's quite interesting. You're right. In other words, instead of talking about what you're saying that's wrong, they decided just on personal attacks.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, this is the problem when your argument is invalid. That's pretty much all you're left with, right? So, We want to sit down and have an open, honest, mature discussion. Let's look at the data. It's there. And, all the stats by StatsCan are the government's own data. So why aren't we following that? Let's learn from that and let's try and find some solutions, to enhance public safety, but not to have these unnecessary, hugely expensive administration regulations that they're putting on us. It's kind of silly. We're going around in circles. Nothing's ever going to change.
Thank you very much. A pleasure talking to Tracey Wilson, Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights.